Rain came down over Boston like the sky had been split open. It struck the glass towers along the harbor, hammered against black umbrellas, turned the sidewalks into mirrors of red brake lights and golden hotel windows. By the time Elara Vale reached the entrance of the Ashbourne Hotel, her dark hair was soaked against her face. Her long black concert dress clung to her legs, and the leather handle of her violin case felt slick beneath her trembling fingers. She had performed in storms before. She had crossed busy streets, blind before. She had survived men speaking slowly to her as if blindness had made her stupid, women touching her arm without permission, strangers praising her for doing ordinary things as if she were a child. But tonight felt different. The rain was too loud. It swallowed the city. Her white cane tapped over polished stone, then marble, then a thick entry rug that drank the sound of her steps. Warmth wrapped around her. Expensive perfume drifted through the air, layered beneath the smell of lilies, leather, cigar smoke, and old money. She had entered the wrong door. Elara stopped. The hotel where she had performed earlier had a side entrance leading toward the concert lounge, but this foyer felt larger, colder, more private. The ceiling was high enough for her cane taps to return in a soft echo. No one greeted her. No concierge voice called out. No rolling suitcases passed. No casual laughter filled the lobby. Instead, there was silence. Not empty silence. Controlled silence. The kind created by men who had stopped talking because someone important had entered. Elara tightened her fingers around the handle of her violin case. "I'm sorry," she said carefully. "I think I came in through the wrong entrance. Could someone point me toward the lobby?" No one answered. Then she heard it. A chair leg shifting half an inch over marble. A cuff brushing against a watch. A faint inhale from a man standing too close to her left. And beyond him, deeper in the room, the slow, steady breathing of someone who was not afraid of anything. Elara took one cautious step back. Her heel caught on the edge of a wet marble seam. The world tilted. Her cane slipped from her hand. The violin case swung hard against her hip. Elara reached out instinctively, expecting to hit the floor. Instead, she crashed into a man. Not just a man. A wall of heat, muscle, expensive wool, and stillness. Large hands caught her shoulders before she fell. They were firm, controlled, not gentle at first. The grip of someone trained to stop threats before identifying them. Around her, the room exploded into movement. Metal clicked. Not one gun. Several. Elara's breath froze in her chest. She could not see them, but she heard the shift of bodies forming a semicircle. The faint leather creak of shoulder holsters, the synchronized tension of men who had done this before. "Don't move," a deep voice ordered from somewhere near her right. Elara went still. "I didn't mean to." Her voice broke. "I slipped. I'm blind. I didn't know this room was private." The hands on her shoulders did not release her. The man in front of her smelled like rain, black coffee, and a cologne so dark and clean, it seemed to belong to another world. Beneath it, faint but unmistakable, was the metallic scent of gun oil. Another man spoke, rougher, closer. "Boss, give the word." "Boss." Elara's stomach dropped. She had heard that word before, in certain hotel corridors, murmured by security guards after private parties ended. She had played enough events for men who arrived in armored cars and never used their real names. Boston had polite universities, old churches, cold harbors, and under all that polished history, families who owned parts of the city no mayor could touch. She had walked into one of those rooms, and she had slammed directly into the most dangerous man in it. The man holding her did not speak immediately. His breathing remained even. No panic, no anger, just a controlled attention that felt heavier than the guns. Elara swallowed. "Please," she whispered, "I only need my cane." Something changed in the air. The man's grip softened not enough to let her go. but enough for her to feel the difference between restraint and harm. Then he leaned closer. His voice was low, intimate, and terrifyingly calm. "Listen." One word. Not shouted, not explained, just whispered. The entire room obeyed. Every man stopped moving. Even the rain beyond the windows seemed to fade behind the command. "Ilara's pulse hammered." "What?" she breathed. "Listen," he repeated, softer this time. "You heard something before you fell." Ilara opened her mouth to deny it. Then she heard it again, behind the quiet string music playing from hidden speakers, behind the rain, behind the breathing of armed men, a tiny metallic scrape, a soft click, a person trying to move without weight in his steps. Ilara's face turned slightly toward the far side of the room. "There's someone near the ice," she whispered. The hands on her shoulders became perfectly still. "What did you say?" the man asked. Ilara forced herself to focus. "A server," she said, or pretending to be one. "His left shoe is dragging. He's nervous. His breathing changed when your men drew guns." The room remained silent. Then came the sound she had heard once before backstage in a theater when a security guard had been careless with his weapon. A magazine being seated into a pistol. Ilara's voice sharpened. "He has a gun." The man holding her moved before she finished speaking. His arms swept around her waist, pulling her behind him as the room detonated into chaos. Men shouted. Glass shattered. A suppressed shot cracked through the ballroom, striking the column where Roman Bellini's head had been one heartbeat earlier. Ilara hit the floor, but not alone. The man dropped with her, covering her body with his own, as the world became thunder, feet pounding, weapons drawn, a table flipping, someone screaming, the sharp crash of an ice sculpture breaking across marble. Her violin case slammed beside her. She reached blindly for it, panic rising. "My violin." "I have you," the man said against her ear. She hated the way her body believed him. The chaos ended faster than it began. One final blow, a body hitting the ground. Agroan. Then silence. This silence was different. Shocked, breathless, afraid. The man lifted slightly from above her but did not move away. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Ilara's hands were shaking so badly she could barely push herself upright. "No." His hand found her cane and placed it back into her fingers. She clutched it like a lifeline. "I need to leave," she said. "You saved my life." "I saved my own," she snapped before she could stop herself. "I happened to be standing next to you." A faint pause. Then, impossibly, he laughed once under his breath. Not warmly, not casually, more like a man surprised to find something alive in a place where everything had been dead for years. "What's your name?" he asked. Ilara lifted her chin. "No." Around them, men shifted uneasily. Someone whispered, "No?" The man in front of her seemed amused. "No?" he repeated. "You don't get my name because you have guns and a nice suit." Another pause. This time the silence held a different charge. Then the rough voice from earlier cut in. "Boss, we need to move. Rinaldi's men could have more shooters nearby." Rinaldi. Ilara had never heard the name, but the way the room reacted told her enough. The man before her stood. His shoes moved closer, not rushed, not uncertain. "Ilara Vale," another voice said suddenly from somewhere near the wall. 28. Violinist. Played the private benefit downstairs tonight. Ilara's blood chilled. The man in front of her went still. "Who told you to look her up?" he asked. "No one, boss. Security has the event sheet." His tone lowered. "Do not say her name again." The room seemed to shrink around that sentence. Ilara's fingers tightened around her cane. "So now you know who I am," she said coldly. "And I still don't know who you are." A few men went so quiet. She knew she had said something dangerous. The man answered anyway. "Roman Bellini." The name moved through her like cold water. Even Ilara knew that name. Everyone in Boston knew it, though most pretended they didn't. Bellini meant restaurants that never failed, construction companies that won impossible contracts, charity galas full of judges and senators, black cars parked outside old North End buildings, and men who lowered their voices when speaking of certain streets. Roman Bellini was not a businessman. He was the kind of man businessmen paid to fear. Ilara stepped back. Romain lit here. That surprised her more than anything. "I'm going home," she said. "No," he replied. The single syllable was quiet, but it shut down the room. Ilara's anger rose because fear had nowhere else to go. "You don't get to decide that. The man who tried to kill me saw your face. I'm blind. He isn't." Her throat tightened. Roman took one slow step closer. His voice dropped, meant only for her. "Ilara, the people who sent him will assume you heard something useful. They will come for you before midnight. You don't know that. I do. Because you live like this? Because I created half of this darkness," he said. "And I know how it moves." That honesty stopped her. Most men would have softened the words, made excuses, called it business or politics or family history. Roman did not. He let the truth stand between them, ugly and sharp. Ilara hated that she respected it. "I'm not getting into a car with you," she said. "I didn't ask you to. You just said I couldn't go home. I said you couldn't go home alone." "Same thing." "No." His voice was controlled, but something dangerous moved beneath it. "If I wanted to force you, you would already be in my car. I am offering you information, protection, and a choice." Ilara laughed once, bitter and shaky. "Men like you always call. Control a choice." The room became deathly silent. Roman said nothing for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower. "You're right to be afraid of me." Ilara's breath caught. "But be more afraid of Victor Rinaldi." Victor Rinaldi. There it was again, a name like a shadow behind every gun in the room. Roman turned his head slightly. "Matteo," the rough voice answered. "Yes, boss." "Send 2 cars to Miss Vale's apartment. Quietly. No lights, no scene. If anyone is waiting for her, I want them alive." "And her?" Roman's attention returned to Ilara. She felt it like heat against her skin. "She decides." That was the first thing he did that truly unsettled her. He gave the order to protect her, then left the next step to her. Ilara stood in the ruined ballroom, soaked from rain, surrounded by men with weapons, her violin case lying beside shattered ice and broken glass. She wanted to run. She wanted to scream. She wanted to wake up in her small apartment in South Boston, with tea cooling beside her and sheet music scattered on the couch. Instead, she heard one of Roman's men answer a phone. "A pause." Then his voice changed. "Boss." Roman did not move. "What?" 2 men just entered her building. The air left Ilara's lungs. The man continued. They had a key. Roman's silence became lethal. Ilara felt the room turn with him, every man sensing the change. "How?" Roman asked. "We don't know yet." Roman exhaled slowly. Then he stepped closer to Ilara, close enough for her to feel the heat of him, but not close enough to touch. "Ilara," he said, "you can hate me in the car." She wanted to refuse. Pride rose first, then fear. Then the sound of that tiny metallic click returned in her memory. A gun behind music. A death she had heard before anyone else. Her apartment was small, old, and easy to break into. Her lock stuck when it rained. Her downstairs neighbor slept with the television loud. No one in that building could protect her from men like the ones currently inside it. Ilara bent, found her violin case, and lifted it. "I sit by the door," she said. Roman's voice softened almost imperceptibly. "Yes. And no one touches me. No one touches you. Including you." Another pause. "Yes." Ilara heard something in his tone then. Not offense. Restraint. That frightened her more than his power. Because power, she understood. Restraint required intention. The ride through Boston was silent, except for rain against armored glass. Ilara sat in the back of Roman Bellini's car with her body angled toward the door, one hand around her cane, the other pressed over the latches of her violin case. Roman sat across from her. She could feel his attention, controlled and constant. He did not pour her a drink. He did not tell her to calm down. He did not touch her. That made it harder to hate him cleanly. "You're staring," she said. "Yes, at a blind woman. At a woman who heard death under a string arrangement in a room full of armed men." She turned her face toward the window. "I've spent most of my life listening because people assume I can't understand what I can't see. And what do you understand about me?" Ilara almost smiled. "You're used to being obeyed. Yes, you're angry, but not because someone tried to kill you, no? You expected that part." Her fingers traced the seam of her violin case. "You're angry because whoever arranged it knew exactly where you would stand." Roman said nothing. Ilara's pulse changed. She had guessed right. "It was someone close to you," she said. The silence in the car sharpened. Roman finally spoke. "I've suspected a traitor for 6 months. And tonight? Tonight he got close enough to put a bullet in my head." "Then why were you listening to me?" "Because everyone else in that room was looking for danger." His voice lowered. "You were hearing it." Ilara did not know what to do with the warmth that moved through her chest. She pushed it down. "Don't make me special. I hate that. I'm not." "You are." "No, Ilara." Roman leaned forward slightly. She heard the leather seat respond to his weight. "Special is what people call something they want to admire from a safe distance. Useful is what I call something that keeps me alive." She turned toward him fully. "Did you just call me useful?" "I called you accurate." Against all reason, a laugh escaped her. It was small, breathless, unwilling. Roman went very still. "What?" she asked. "Nothing." "No, say it." "I did not expect that sound from you." "My laugh?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because you are terrified. I can be terrified and still find you rude." This time, the silence between them was not cold. It had edges, dangerous ones. The car descended into an underground garage beneath a building Ilara could smell before she understood. Salt air from the harbor, wet concrete, fuel, polished metal, money. Doors opened. Men moved. Roman stepped out first. He did not offer his hand. He stood close enough for her to know where he was and waited. Ilara hated that he was learning quickly. "Where are we?" she asked. "My building." "That sounds like a terrible place for me to be." "It's the safest place in Boston." "For you?" "For anyone under my protection." "I didn't agree to be under your protection." "No," he said. "You agreed not to die tonight." She stepped out of the car with her cane. "I still hate you." "You said you would." A private elevator carried them up so smoothly Ilara barely felt movement. Roman stood to her left. Matteo, the rough-voiced man, stood near the doors, 2 others behind them. No one spoke. The penthouse smelled of cedarwood, stone, cold air, and the ocean beyond glass walls. Ilara knew luxury by sound more than sight. The absence of clutter, the soft absorption of expensive rugs, the distant hush of heating systems hidden in architecture, the way every surface seemed designed not to echo unless it wanted to. Roman guided her without touching her. 3 steps, he said. "I know." He stopped. Ilara tapped her cane forward, found the change in flooring, and stepped down. "You counted from the elevator," he said. "I listen." "So? You keep reminding me. So you don't forget." "I won't." The answer was too quiet, too serious. A woman appeared with warm clothes, tea, and a soft voice. Roman introduced her as Mrs. Calder, the housekeeper who had worked for his family for 20 years. Ilara accepted dry clothes, but refused to change until Roman left the room. He did. No argument, no smug comment, no lingering. That unsettled her again. An hour later, wearing a borrowed sweater and soft pants that probably cost more than her rent, Ilara sat in a chair near the penthouse windows with her violin case resting at her feet. Rain tapped the glass in long, trembling lines. Roman stood across the room on a phone call. He spoke in low Italian for most of it. Ilara understood none of the words but all of the emotion beneath them. Control, rage, calculation, then one name, Rinaldi. Her fingers tightened. When Roman ended the call, she said, "Tell me what happened at my apartment." He did not pretend not to understand. Two men entered. They had a copied key. My men stopped them. Alive? Yes. What did they want? You. Her mouth went dry. Roman crossed the room, stopping several feet away. They had a photograph from tonight, he said. Already? Yes. How? Someone inside the hotel sent it. The traitor. Likely. Ilara closed her eyes, though darkness was all she ever saw. What happens now? I find him. And me? You stay here until I know you can go home safely. No. Roman said nothing. Ilara stood too fast, cane striking the floor. No, she repeated. I won't be locked in some beautiful prison because your world spilled into mine. You walked into my meeting. I walked into a hotel during a storm and saved my life. And now, apparently, that means I lose mine? Roman's breath changed. Not anger exactly. Pain, quickly buried. You think I want this? He asked. I think men like you want everything. You're wrong. Emmy? He stepped closer. Ilara held her ground. I want my traitor, Roman said softly. I want Victor Rinaldi on his knees. I want my city quiet again. His voice dropped. And I want you alive long enough to hate me properly. A dangerous warmth moved through her again. She hated that too. You don't know me, she whispered. No. Then don't act like losing me matters. Roman did not answer right away. When he did, his voice was almost too calm. Some lives become important in a single second. Ilara's throat tightened. That sounds like obsession. It probably is. She should have stepped back. She didn't. The days that followed taught Ilara how dangerous protection could feel when it was wrapped in luxury. Roman's penthouse had every comfort a person could imagine. Heated floors beneath her bare feet, meals prepared before she knew she was hungry, a music room with acoustics, so perfect her violin sounded like it was breathing. Mrs. Calder was kind without pity. Matteo was gruff but respectful. Roman remained present without hovering. And still, every locked elevator reminded Ilara she was not free. On the second morning, she found Roman in the music room. She knew him by the stillness. Most people made small noises when they watched her play. They shifted, sighed, checked phones, breathed differently when moved. Roman did none of that. He listened like the music was giving testimony. Ilara lowered her violin. How long have you been there? 4 minutes. That's specific. You stopped 3 times on the same phrase. She frowned. You noticed? Yes. Why? Because it made you angry. She set the violin down. You hear that too? With you? Yes. The words landed too softly. Ilara turned away. You shouldn't say things like that. Why? Because I might start believing you mean them. Roman's footsteps moved closer, then stopped before he entered her space. I mean everything I say to you. That is exactly the problem. Silence stretched between them. Then his phone rang. The warmth vanished from the room before he answered. Roman listened for 20 seconds. His voice, when it came, was ice. Where? Another pause. Lock down the docks. No one leaves. He ended the call. Ilara's hand found the edge of the piano. What happened? Victor Rinaldi sent me a message. What kind? Roman did not answer. Ilara turned toward him. What kind, Roman? It was the first time she said his name. He noticed. She could feel him notice. A body was left at one of my warehouses, he said. Ilara went still. Because of me? Because of me. That's not an answer. It's the only one you need. No. She stepped toward him. Don't do that. Don't protect me by making me ignorant. Roman's voice hardened. Ignorance keeps people alive. No. It keeps them dependent. That struck him. She heard it in the silence. Then he said, "The man at the warehouse was the fake server from the hotel." Ilara's stomach turned. The assassin? Yes. But you captured him. We did. Then how? Someone gave Rinaldi access before we could question him. The traitor, again. Closer than close. Ilara slowly sat down. So the person inside your organization knows your safe places, your prisoners, your movements. Yes. And now they know I'm here. Roman's silence answered. Ilara should have panicked. Instead, something cold and focused moved through her. What did the assassin sound like? Roman's tone shifted. What? The man from the hotel. Did you question him at all before he was taken? No. He was unconscious, but he spoke before the shooting. Roman went still. Ilara closed her eyes, reaching back into the chaos of the ballroom. The rain, the guns, the string arrangement, the fake waiter breathing too quickly. He whispered something, she said, before he loaded the gun. Not to himself, into a comm device, maybe. Roman came closer. What did he say? Ilara listened to the memory. The harbor is open. Roman cursed softly. Matteo, who had entered without her noticing, reacted sharply. Boss. Roman's voice turned lethal. How many people knew about the harbor route tonight? Matteo answered, 7. Bring me all of them. Ilara stood. I want to hear them. No. Her head snapped toward Roman. You need me. I need you. Alive. And I need my life back. If your traitor is the reason I don't have one, then I'm helping find him. Roman's anger filled the room, silent and immense. Matteo muttered. She has a point. Roman's head turned. Matteo cleared his throat. A dangerous point. Ilara almost smiled. Roman did not. But that afternoon, 6 men came to the penthouse. Ilara sat behind a screen in Roman's study, unseen, with a cup of untouched tea cooling in her hands. Roman stood near the fireplace. Matteo remained by the door. Each man was asked the same questions about the harbor route, the hotel meeting, the prisoner transfer. Ilara listened, not only to words, to breath before lies, to saliva swallowed before names, to the false relaxation men created when trying to appear calm. The first 4 were nervous but clean. The 5th was angry at being questioned. The 6th was calm, too calm. His name was Saul Marin. Roman introduced him as one of his oldest captains. Saul had a smooth voice, expensive dental work that clicked faintly on certain consonants, and a habit of tapping one finger against his ring when silent. Ilara heard the ring before she heard the lie. Roman asked, who knew about the prisoner transfer? Saul answered evenly, only Matteo's team. The ring tapped once. Ilara leaned forward. Roman continued, did you speak with anyone outside the family after the hotel attack? No. Tap. Did you know the assassin had been moved? No, boss. Tap. Ilara's skin prickled, not because of the lie, because of the rhythm. Tap. Pause. Tap, tap. She had heard it before, in the ballroom. Not from the assassin. From someone standing near the far wall while she lay on the floor beneath Roman's body. Ilara rose from her chair. The screen blocked her from sight, but not sound. Roman noticed immediately. What is it? He asked. Saul's breathing changed. Ilara spoke before fear could stop her. Ask him why he taps his ring in 3s when he lies. The room went silent. Saul laughed. A perfect, insulted laugh. Boss, with respect, are we taking criminal advice from a blind musician now? Roman did not move. That blind musician heard a gun before 20 armed men saw one. Saul's breathing sharpened. Ilara stepped out from behind the screen. She could not see Saul's face, but she felt his attention hit her like cold oil. "You were in the ballroom," she said. "Everyone was in the ballroom." "No. You were near the west wall. You turned your ring 3 times after the first shot. Same rhythm, same hand." Saul scoffed. "This is absurd." Roman's voice was quiet. "Remove your ring." Saul did not answer. Matteo moved. The next seconds happened too fast. A chair scraped. A gun came free. Roman moved in front of Ilara before she heard the full draw. Matteo struck Saul's wrist. The gun hit the floor. Men shouted. Ilara stood frozen, heart pounding, as Saul was forced to his knees. Roman did not shout. That was worse. "You sold my hotel route," he said. Saul breathed hard. "Roman, my prisoner, listen to me. My city." Saul laughed then, bitter and desperate. "Your city," he spat. "You think this city loves you? You think loyalty survives fear forever? Rinaldi pays. You punish." Roman stepped closer. Ilara heard the shift in him and knew violence was coming. "Roman," she said. He stopped, not because Saul deserved mercy, because she had spoken. Ilara felt everyone in the room understand it at the same time. Her voice could stop him. That power terrified her. Saul noticed too, and smiled. "There it is," Saul whispered. "The weakness." Roman's silence turned black. Saul lifted his head toward Ilara's direction. "Rinaldi was right. She isn't just a witness. She's the leash." Roman hit him once. The sound cracked through the room. Ilara flinched, but did not look away. A few minutes later, Saul was dragged out. The study smelled of sweat, leather, and fury. Roman stood with his back to her. She knew because his voice came from the window. "You should not have seen that." "I didn't." He exhaled sharply. "You know what I mean." Ilara touched the edge of the desk. "He called me your weakness." "Yes. Is he right?" Roman said nothing. That silence frightened her more than an answer. Ilara walked toward him slowly, counting steps, cane brushing the rug. "Roman, don't. What?" "Don't ask me something I don't know how to answer without making this worse." Her heart began to ache in a place she had not guarded well enough. "You can start with the truth." He turned. She felt him near her now, close enough that the air warmed between them. "The truth?" he murmured. "The truth is that 3 days ago you were a stranger who fell into me during a storm. Now every plan I make begins with whether it keeps you breathing." Ilara's hand tightened around her cane. "That's not love." "No." "Then what is it?" "Something darker." Her breath caught. Roman's voice lowered. "Something I am trying very hard not to put in your hands." The space between them became unbearable. She could feel him almost touch her. His hand lifted, stopped, lowered. That restraint did more damage than contact would have. Ilara whispered, "I'm not yours." "I know." "Do you?" His answer was raw. "I remind myself every minute." She stepped back first, because if she didn't, she was afraid she would step closer. The attack came that night, not at the penthouse. Roman was too prepared for that. It came through music. A message was delivered to Ilara's phone from an unknown number. At first, Mrs. Calder thought it was spam, but when Ilara played it aloud, the room changed. A violin. Her violin. A recording from years ago, when she had performed at a small church benefit after losing her sight. Her playing had been less refined then, full of grief and anger, the notes trembling as if she were cutting herself open with each phrase. Then a man's voice entered over the music. Victor Rinaldi. Smooth. Older. Amused. "Miss Vale," he said. "Roman Bellini collects beautiful broken things. He will tell you he is protecting you. He will tell you his cage is safer than the street. But ask yourself something. A pause. Why did Saul know your apartment address before Roman claimed to?" Ilara went cold. Roman, standing across the room, did not move. Rinaldi continued. "Ask yourself how fast his men arrived. Ask yourself whether you stumbled into him by accident, or whether powerful men arrange storms when they want something rare delivered to their door. The recording ended. Elara could barely breathe. Roman said her name. She stepped back. Elara. No. That message was designed to... Did Saul know my address before the hotel? Roman's silence was too small. Too late. Elara's voice broke. Answer me. Roman's jaw shifted. Yes. The room seemed to fall away. You said he got it from security after the attack. I said security had your event sheet. That's not the same thing. No. Why did he know my address? Roman's voice was controlled, but the control was costing him. Because my people gather information on every person working private events involving my family. It is standard protocol. Elara laughed, but there was no humor in it. So I was background checked, because I played violin near criminals. Yes. And you didn't tell me? No. Her chest tightened with humiliation. All this time, you let me think I still owned some part of myself. Roman stepped closer. You do? No. Her voice sharpened. You had my address, my name, my life, probably my medical history and my bank account, before I ever knew you existed. I didn't look at the file until after the attack. That is supposed to comfort me? No. His voice dropped. It is supposed to be the truth. Elara grabbed her violin case. Roman's tone changed. Where are you going? Anywhere that isn't yours. It's not safe. Neither are you. The words struck him. She felt it. For one terrible second she wanted to take them back, but she didn't. Roman said quietly, I won't stop you. Elara froze. Matteo made a low sound of protest. Roman cut him off. She walks out if she wants to. Elara's throat burned. Of all the things he could have done, this was the cruelest. He gave her freedom when she was angry enough to use it. Mrs. Calder pressed a coat into her hands. Matteo quietly said he would send men at a distance. Elara refused. Roman said nothing. She left the safest place in Boston, with rain beginning again beyond the glass doors. And for 3 blocks, no one touched her. No one followed close enough for her to hear. No one stopped her. That was how Victor Rinaldi's men took her. Not with guns blazing, not with dramatic threats. A van door opened beside her, on a narrow street near the harbor. A cloth pressed over her mouth. An arm locked around her ribs. Elara struck hard with her cane, heard someone grunt, heard her violin case hit the pavement, heard a man curse in Italian. Then darkness became deeper. When she woke, the first thing she heard was water. Not rain. Harbor water. Slow waves striking old wooden pilings beneath a warehouse floor. Her wrists were tied to the arms of a chair. Her head throbbed. Her cane was gone. Her violin case sat somewhere nearby. She could smell the rosin and old varnish. A man hummed softly. The voice from the recording. Victor Rinaldi. You are difficult to collect, Miss Vale. Elara forced her breathing to stay even. And you're exactly as theatrical as I expected. He chuckled. I see why Bellini is distracted. I doubt you see much clearly. A pause. Then a slap of sound, not skin, but a hand hitting the table beside her hard enough to make her flinch. Careful. Elara swallowed. Fear moved through her, cold and bright. But fear had been with her for years. She knew how to function beside it. What do you want? She asked. Roman Bellini's weakness. I'm not that. No? Rinaldi walked slowly around her chair. His shoes had hard soles, Italian leather, a slight limp in the right foot. He let Saul live long enough to talk because you said his name. He allowed you to leave because you were angry. He has half the city looking for you right now. Elara's stomach twisted. Roman was looking for her. She hated the relief that came with that thought. Rinaldi leaned closer. Tell me how you identified Saul. No? Then tell me what else you heard at the hotel. No. You realize bravery is less charming when no one is coming fast enough to reward it. Ilara smiled faintly. You talk too much for a man who thinks he's winning. The room went still. Rinaldi laughed softly. Then he snapped his fingers. Someone dragged her violin case closer and opened it. Ilara's heart lurched. No. Ah, Rinaldi said. There she is. A hand lifted the violin. The old wood gave a soft, familiar creak. Ilara pulled against the restraints. Don't touch it. Roman Bellini can replace it. No, he can't. Rinaldi came closer. Then give me something useful. Ilara's breath shook. The violin was not expensive by Roman standards. It was not a museum piece. It was not rare enough to impress men who bought art to hide money. But it had been hers since she was 17. It had absorbed grief, rage, hunger, ambition. It had been held against her collarbone on nights when the world seemed too large and too dark. It was not an object. It was memory with strings. Rinaldi knew it. Men like him always knew where pain lived. Last chance, he said. Ilara lowered her head. Then she heard something, far away, beyond the warehouse. A boat engine slowing, too steady for harbor traffic. Then another. Then tires over wet concrete. Black SUVs. Roman. Rinaldi heard nothing yet. Ilara lifted her face. You're right, she said quietly. Rinaldi paused. About what? Roman does have a weakness. He leaned in. Ilara smiled. He thinks he has to arrive before I save myself. She slammed her bound wrist downward, tipping the chair sideways. The fall was brutal. Pain shot through her shoulder. Men shouted. Her cheek hit cold concrete. But the impact snapped one wooden arm of the old chair, loose enough for her to twist her wrist. She rolled toward the sound of her violin case. A man grabbed her ankle. Ilara kicked backward hard, heel striking bone. He cursed. She reached into the open case, fingers finding not the violin but the spare bow tube. Carbon fiber. Strong. Long enough. She swung upward at the sound of breath. The man fell back with a broken shout. Then the warehouse doors exploded inward. Not literally. They opened with such force and violence that the entire building seemed to inhale. Roman Bellini entered like a storm wearing black. His voice cut across the warehouse. Step away from her. No one moved. Then all at once, everyone did. The fight was fast, controlled, terrifying. Roman's men moved through Rinaldi's guards with brutal efficiency. Ilara stayed low, listening, crawling toward the sound of her violin. Someone ran toward her. She raised the bow tube again, but the footsteps stopped. It's me, Matteo said. She knew his voice. Your left, she gasped. One behind the crates. Matteo turned before the man fired. A shot cracked. Wood splintered. Roman was suddenly there. He dropped to his knees beside her, hands hovering, not touching until she nodded. Ilara. His voice broke on her name. That sound did something terrible to her heart. I'm okay, she whispered. You're bleeding. Mostly angry. A breath left him that was almost a laugh, almost a sob. He cut her restraints with a knife. His hands were steady, too steady. Only his breathing betrayed him. Rinaldi was dragged forward by two of Roman's men, blood at his mouth, pride still intact. Roman stood slowly. Ilara grabbed his wrist. He stopped instantly. Don't kill him for me, she said. The warehouse fell silent. Roman's pulse beat hard beneath her fingers. Rinaldi laughed weakly. There it is again, he rasped. The leash. Roman did not look away from Ilara. He took you, and I'm still here. He touched what was yours. My violin is mine. My life is mine. My fear is mine. Her grip tightened. Don't make your revenge part of me. Roman's silence was the most violent thing in the room. Then he leaned down, his voice for her alone. What do you want? The question moved through her. Not what should I do? Not tell me to stop. Not give me permission. What do you want? Ilara whispered. I want him alive long enough to destroy his own empire. Roman's breath slowed. Then he straightened. Take Rinaldi, he ordered. Every account, every judge, every captain, every dock worker on his payroll. I want his kingdom emptied before dawn. Rinaldi's laughter vanished. Roman turned to Matteo. He lives. For now. Matteo looked at Ilara, then back to Roman. Yes, boss. Roman knelt again, gathering Ilara's violin with a care so reverent it hurt more than any apology. He placed it in her hands. I'm sorry, he said. Ilara held the instrument against her chest. For what? For every way my world touched yours without permission. She closed her eyes. The apology did not fix it, but it entered a place in her that had expected excuses. Roman helped her stand. This time, when his arm came around her, she let it, not because she was weak, because she was tired, because she had chosen it, because when she leaned into him, his entire body trembled once before he controlled it. The city changed after Rinaldi's capture, not publicly. Boston still woke to fog over the harbor, students crossing brick sidewalks, church bells, traffic, coffee shops opening at dawn. But beneath the surface, men vanished from certain corners. Businesses changed hands. Judges stopped answering private calls. Warehouses emptied overnight. Victor Rinaldi's empire did not explode. It bled out quietly. Ilara refused to return to Roman's penthouse as a prisoner. So, Roman changed tactics. He repaired the lock on her apartment without entering it. He posted men 2 blocks away instead of outside her door. He sent her information, not instructions. Names, threats, routes to avoid, times she could choose to leave. He asked before arranging a driver. He knocked before entering. He learned the difference between protection and possession, like a man learning a language he had once considered beneath him. Ilara noticed. She hated that she noticed. 1 week after the warehouse, she found him sitting on the stairs outside her apartment building in the rain. No umbrella. No guards nearby that she could hear. Just Roman, soaked and silent, sitting like a man who had no right to enter and knew it. Ilara stopped beneath the awning. You look ridiculous. Yes. You own half the city, and you're sitting on wet concrete. Yes. Why? Because if I stood, it would look like I expected you to let me in. Her heart tightened. She stood beside him. Rain softened the street around them. You could have called, she said. I did. I didn't answer. I know. So you came here? Yes. Roman. He tilted his head toward her. I needed to know you got home from rehearsal. I texted Matteo. He told me. Then why are you here? Silence. Then, quietly. Because knowing and hearing your voice are not the same thing. Ilara's throat closed. She lowered herself onto the step beside him. He shifted slightly, giving her space. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, she said, I don't want to be your weakness. You're not. Saul thought I was. Rinaldi thought I was. They were wrong. What am I then? Roman's voice was rougher than usual, the part of me that still knows when to stop. Ilara turned her face toward the rain. That's a dangerous thing to put on someone. I know. I can't save you from yourself. I'm not asking you to. Then what are you asking? He breathed out slowly. For the chance to stand near you, without turning it into a cage. Her chest ached. You make everything sound like a vow. With you, it usually is. The rain fell harder. Ilara reached out, found his sleeve, and tugged once. Roman went completely still. Come inside, she said. He did not move for 2 seconds. Then he stood. Inside her apartment, Roman seemed too large, too expensive, too dangerous for the small rooms she had fought so hard to make her own. He noticed everything. The uneven floorboard near the kitchen, the old radiator, the stack of braille-labeled sheet music, the mug with a chipped handle. He touched nothing. Ilara made a tea. Roman stood near the door until she said, "You can sit down." He sat, carefully, as if the couch belonged to a country with laws he did not know. Ilara almost laughed. "What?" he asked. "You're afraid of my furniture. I'm afraid of doing one more thing wrong." The honesty disarmed her. She set tea in front of him and sat in the chair opposite. "You will," she said. Roman accepted, that with a small nod, "Probably. And I will tell you, I expect nothing less." The warmth between them returned, quiet and dangerous. Ilara wrapped both hands around her mug. "Why did you stop in the warehouse?" Roman looked toward her. "Because you asked me to. Is it that simple?" "No." His voice lowered. "Everything in me wanted him dead at my feet. But you stopped." "Yes." "Why?" "Because I realized I was about to use your pain as permission for my violence." Ilara could not speak for a moment. Roman continued, "I have done many things I won't apologize for, but I won't make you the excuse for them." Her eyes burned, useless and full of tears anyway. "You're still dangerous," she whispered. "Yes, I'm still afraid of you sometimes. I know, and I still don't know what this is." Roman leaned forward, elbows on knees, voice quiet. "Then we don't name it yet." Ilara smiled faintly. "You? Willing to leave something undefined?" With difficulty, she laughed. This time, Roman laughed too, softly, almost like a man remembering he was human. The final trap was set at the Ashbourne Hotel. 3 weeks after the storm, Roman announced a charity concert for the Bellini Foundation, a public event supporting music education for blind and disabled children across Massachusetts. The newspapers called it generous. Business leaders called it strategic. Roman's enemies called it arrogance. Ilara called it bait. "You're using yourself," she said in his study the night before. Roman adjusted his cufflinks. "Yes, and me." His hand stopped. "No, Roman." He turned. "You perform only if you choose to," he said. "Not because I need you there. But you do need me there." His jaw tightened. "Ilara, the remaining Rinaldi men won't move unless they believe I can expose them. If I'm on that stage, they'll come. I won't use you as bait." She stepped closer. "You don't get to call it using me when I'm choosing it." His expression changed. He still struggled with that. Her choice, her danger, her right to stand inside both. "I hate this," he said. "I know. If anything happens to you, you'll burn down the city?" His silence answered. Ilara reached up. For a moment, her fingers hovered. Then she touched his face. Roman closed his eyes. The reaction was so immediate, so vulnerable, that her breath caught. "I need you to trust me tomorrow," she whispered. His hand lifted, covering hers against his cheek. "I trust you." "No, you trust my hearing, my instincts, my courage. But I need you to trust my decisions." His thumb brushed once over her knuckles. "That," he admitted, "is harder. I know." His voice broke slightly. "But I will." The concert hall glittered the next night with chandeliers, black tuxedos, silk gowns, champagne glasses, and smiles sharp enough to cut. Boston's elite came because Roman Bellini invited them, and no one powerful declined Roman Bellini twice. Ilara stood backstage with her violin beneath her chin and listened to the audience breathe. Roman was in the front row. She knew exactly where. Not because anyone told her, because the air around him was different. Still, controlled, waiting. Matteo stood near the right exit. 2 Bellini men near the balcony stairs. Mrs. Calder in the second row, pretending not to cry before the music even began. Ilara smiled at that. Then she heard it. Tap. Pause. Tap tap. Not Saul's ring. Saul was gone. This was different. A cufflink against glass. Zamerütem. A signal copied by someone who thought patterns belonged only to the sighted. Ilara began to play. The first note rose into the hall like a thread of light. The audience quieted. She moved through the opening phrase, letting the music breathe, while her mind separated every sound in the room. Programs rustling, a woman swallowing tears, a man near the balcony shifting weight from left to right, Romans breathing in the front row, the cufflink again, tap, pause, tap tap. Ilara turned slightly, as part of the performance. The sound came from the upper balcony. Not one man. 3. Her bow continued moving. She changed the phrase. Roman knew the piece. She had played it for him once in the penthouse. This note did not belong. Then another. A warning. Hidden in music. Roman's body changed. She heard it, even from the stage. His chair gave the smallest sound as he leaned forward. Ilara played the wrong phrase again. Left balcony. 3 men. Matteo moved. The audience noticed nothing. That was the miracle of music. It could hide terror beautifully. Then a child coughed in the 3rd row. One of the men above reacted. A gun brushed fabric. Ilara stopped playing. The sudden silence was shocking. Every face turned toward the stage. Ilara lowered her violin. Roman, she said clearly. He was already standing. Down. He did not question her. He dropped. The first shot shattered the chandelier above his seat. Glass rained over the front row. The hall erupted. Roman's men moved instantly, but the crowd surged in panic. Ilara stood on stage, hearing everything at once. Screams, footsteps, weapons, Roman shouting orders, Matteo fighting near the balcony stairs. Someone grabbed Ilara from behind. An arm locked around her throat. A voice hissed in her ear, "Play, little violinist." A gun pressed to her side. The audience froze. Roman turned. The entire room seemed to stop breathing. The man holding Ilara dragged her to the front of the stage. "Drop your weapons," he shouted, "or Bellini watches her die in front of his donors." Roman stood in the aisle, glass on his shoulders, blood at his temple from a falling shard. His face was calm, too calm. Only Ilara knew his breathing had changed. Only Ilara heard the terror beneath the control. The gunman pressed the weapon harder into her ribs. "Tell them." Ilara's fingers tightened around her bow. Roman's voice moved through the hall. "Ilara, not a warning. A question. Do you want me to act? Do you trust yourself? Do you trust me?" She gave the smallest nod. Roman lowered his gun. Gasps rippled through the hall. The gunman laughed. "That's it. On your knees, Bellini." Roman slowly lowered himself to one knee. The sight of it sent shock through the crowd. The most feared man in Boston kneeling in broken glass because a blind violinist stood on stage with a gun to her side. Ilara felt the gunman's attention shift. Pride. Distraction. His fatal mistake. She drove the heel of her shoe down onto his instep, twisted her body toward the arm holding the gun, and slammed the wooden frog of her bow into the nerve below his wrist. The shot went wide. Roman moved. Not wild, not uncontrolled. Perfect. Matteo tackled the second man rushing the stage. Roman reached Ilara as the gunman fell, pulling her behind him with one arm, while disarming the man with the other. The hall shook with screams, then with silence. Roman did not chase the remaining attackers. He stayed with Ilara. She felt the choice. Everyone did. His empire could wait. She could not. "Are you hurt?" he asked, voice low and shaking with restraint. "No." "Ilara." "No," she repeated softer. "I'm not hurt." His forehead lowered until it almost touched hers. He stopped, just before contact. Always stopping, always asking without words. This time, Ilara closed the distance. Her forehead rested against his. In front of Boston's elite, police sirens approaching, glass glittering around them like ice, Ilara Vale lifted her hand and held Roman Bellini's face. The room watched the monster become human for one woman, and Roman let them. By dawn, the Rinaldi organization was finished. The surviving attackers gave up names. Accounts were frozen. Politicians denied involvement too quickly. Men who had spent years hiding behind money discovered that Roman Bellini did not need to kill them to destroy them. He simply exposed enough truth to let their own fear do the work. Victor Rinaldi, already broken by the collapse of his empire, was handed to federal agents with a file so complete it made headlines for weeks. The newspapers called Roman Bellini a philanthropist caught in a tragic criminal conspiracy. Ilara laughed for a full minute when she heard that. Roman did not. You find that funny? You? A helpless philanthropist? I have layers. You have lawyers. He smiled faintly. They were standing in the empty concert hall, 2 nights after the attack. The broken chandelier had been removed. The seats were clean. The stage smelled faintly of dust, polish, and memory. Ilara had asked to come back. Roman had not understood why, but he brought her. No guards inside. Only Matteo outside the doors, pretending he was not listening. Ilara walked to the center of the stage. Her cane tapped once, then stopped. This is where you knelt, she said. Roman remained below the stage. Yes. You knew everyone would see. Yes. You didn't care. No. She turned toward his voice. Why? He looked up at her. Ilara could not see his face, but she heard the truth before he said it. Because I love you. The words entered the empty hall and stayed there. No music, no rain, no guns, just his voice, stripped of power. Ilara's breath caught. Roman continued before she could answer. I don't know how to love gently. I don't know how to want without wanting too much. I don't know how to stand close to you without fighting every instinct I have to place the world under my control so it never touches you again. His voice lowered. But I know this. I would rather spend my life learning how to love you freely than own 1 second of you by force. Ilara's eyes filled. For most of her life, men had offered her help that felt like a hand closing around her throat. Roman Bellini was the most dangerous man she had ever known. And somehow, he was the first one powerful enough to choose restraint. She walked down the stage steps slowly. Roman did not move. When she reached him, she lifted her hand. He met it halfway, guiding her palm to his chest. His heart beat hard beneath her fingers. You're still terrifying, she whispered. Yes. Still arrogant. Yes. Still convinced you can solve emotional problems with armored cars. I'm improving. A little. His mouth curved. She felt it when she touched his jaw. Ilara breathed in. I love you too. Roman went still, completely still, as if the sentence had struck him harder than any bullet. Then his hand covered hers against his chest. Ilara, you don't get to sound that surprised. I'm not surprised. You are. I'm trying not to ruin this by saying something possessive. She laughed softly. What were you going to say? His thumb brushed her wrist. That you are mine. She tilted her head. Roman. I know. His voice warmed. You are yours. And? He exhaled. And I am grateful you choose to stand near me. Ilara smiled. Better. He leaned closer. May I kiss you? Her heart opened painfully. Yes. Roman kissed her like a vow made in darkness and kept in light. Not soft, not safe, but careful. So careful it made her ache. His hands framed her face without trapping her. His body shielded her out of instinct, but held back out of respect. Ilara stepped closer by choice, and when she did, Roman made a sound low in his chest that told her exactly how much restraint cost him. Outside, Boston moved on. Rain dried from stone streets. The harbor fog lifted. The newspapers found new scandals. But inside the empty concert hall, a blind violinist and a mafia boss stood among the ghosts of violence and chose something more dangerous than survival. Trust. Months later, Ilara performed again at the Ashbourne Hotel. The same ballroom had been restored, the marble polished, the bullet marks erased. the chandelier replaced. Wealth glittered from every corner as if nothing terrible had ever happened there. But Elara remembered. The rain, the wrong door, the guns, the one word that changed everything. Listen. Roman stood at the back of the room in a black suit, hands folded in front of him, expression unreadable to everyone else. To Elara, he was as loud as a confession. She heard his breathing alter when she stepped onto the stage, heard the faint shift of his shoes when she lifted her violin, heard the controlled stillness of a man who could command the city but had learned not to command her heart. She played the piece she had never finished that first night. The melody rose through the ballroom, aching and beautiful. People listened because the music was stunning. Roman listened because he knew what it had cost. When the final note faded, the room erupted in applause. Elara lowered her violin. She did not need to see Roman to know he had not clapped. He never did immediately. He always waited one breath too long, as if returning from somewhere private inside the music. Then his hands came together, slowly. Once, twice. The room followed his rhythm without realizing it. Elara smiled. After the performance, she found him near the same marble steps where she had slipped into his arms. "You're standing in the exact spot," she said. "I know. Sentimental? Strategic." She laughed. "Liar." Roman stepped closer. "Careful, Miss Vale. I'm still feared in this city. Not by me." "No," he said softly. "Never by you." The words settled between them. Elara reached for his hand. He gave it instantly. Not to lead, not to claim, just to meet her where she had reached. Outside, rain began tapping against the hotel windows again. Elara tilted her head toward the sound. Roman watched her with the same dangerous devotion that had once frightened her. Now it still frightened her, but differently, like standing at the edge of a storm and knowing the storm would never lie about what it was. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked. "Every day." "Which part?" His thumb moved over her knuckles. "The moment you told me there was a gun. Not when I crashed into you. That too. Not when you whispered at me like a dramatic villain." His mouth curved. "I was trying to save my life. You said one word. You heard everything else." Elara smiled. Then, quietly, "I was so scared." Roman's hand tightened once, then relaxed. "I know, but I'm glad I walked into the wrong room." His voice changed. "Suanwi." She turned toward the rain, toward the city, toward the dangerous man beside her. Once, Elara Vale had believed independence meant never needing anyone's hand. Now she knew better. Independence was choosing whose hand to hold. Roman Bellini did not save her from darkness. He met her inside it. He learned her boundaries like scripture. He placed his power at her feet and waited for permission to use it. And Elara, who had been underestimated by everyone, became the one person the most feared mafia boss in Boston trusted more than himself. She entered his world by accident. She survived because she was stronger than anyone believed. And Roman Bellini fell in love with the woman who taught him that true power was not possession. It was trust.